This is what the scripture says. He who oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker. But whoever is kind to the needy honors God. What does it mean to honor God? It means to take time for the poor and the needy. And the story of Tree of Life focuses very much on the poor and the needy. The story begins, and we've only got a very short space of time, but let me do my best to digest the story. It begins in Gulfport, Mississippi, of all places. In the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, I, together with about a dozen or so local Christians from this area, journeyed down to Gulfport to see how we could help in the aftermath of the storm. And what I saw was sheer devastation, the likes of which I'd never seen before. But I also saw poverty, the likes of which I'd not seen for a long, long time. My place of birth is in Manchester, England, and I was born into a really impoverished area. Lots of drugs, lots of crime, lots of everything that comes with those two issues. And but for the grace of God, my life could have been very, very much different than it is today. But as a very young child living in that state of impoverishment, my father had what was almost a tragic accident at work, and he fractured his skull severely. And it took him a long time to recover, but having recovered, his company were able to offer him just a little bit of compensation. And that compensation was sufficient to move myself and my mother out of that inner city mess and into a small suburb of Manchester. Just so happened that God had plans for my family and for me. And in the very house opposite where we moved to comes an American missionary couple from Cincinnati, Ohio. And they opened their home to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. And at 8 years of age, I wandered into that home and became a follower of Jesus Christ. And my life has never been the same since. But to cut a very long story short, perhaps that the fact that an American missionary couple brought me to salvation, it was probably an inevitable fact that one day I would end up moving to the USA. So in the aftermath of 9/11, I felt this overwhelming sense that my place, my home, should be the USA. And I won't tell you how I got here, that's for another day. But the point being that when I entered into Gulfport, I was reminded of what I'd left behind. And so journeying north back home to Loudon, I genuinely sensed that I was going in the wrong direction. I was traveling to a place where it seemed on the outside that everybody has it made. Houses are nice, houses are big, people are working, people are earning. And I really felt I wanted to go back to Gulfport because that's where the need was. But in my time of prayer on that, whatever it was, 12-hour journey back home, I very much sensed God tell me that, Paul, I've got work for you to do with the poor and the needy right where I've placed you. Just be patient. And so I fast forward. John mentions Percival Baptist. 2008, I was responsible in the couple of years preceding for the oversight of the new construction of the Percival Baptist Church. It consumed a lot of my time and energy and effort, but having completed that exercise, then we opened the doors of the building. We gathered as a team of leaders at the time in 2008 to pray and to plan what next. And we sat in a room not unlike this, and a guy stood up and he said, I want you to write down on a piece of paper what you think the focus for the church should be in the coming years. And at that point I sensed God was giving me my chance to advocate for the poor. And so I wrote down on my little bit of paper, not unlike the paper you've got in front of you, I think the church should set aside the first 20% of everything that's given to it to meet the needs of the poor. And just to put that comment in context, the church had just signed on a very large mortgage. It was pretty much the very onset of worshipping in a brand new building. And in October 2008, you're probably all too young to remember, but there was a financial crisis, the likes of which we've not seen before. But one by one around that room, there was unanimity that that was the right thing to do. And so the decision was taken to set aside 10% for world missions and 10% for community or local missions. And as a result, Tree of Life Ministries was effectively birthed. I thought my time, my role was done, my job was done. I'd advocated for the poor, the church had set the funds aside. But I began to sense that God had bigger plans for me in this whole journey. And so again, I went away and I prayed. If you face big decisions, you young guys, you'll face big decisions. Go away and pray. Find a space that's your own space. For me, it's walking in the woods on my own. But find a place where you can commune just with God, your Creator, and seek His will. And having done that, I came away, and I'll leave you with these cards when you go, but the strategy for Tree of Life is effectively wrapped up on this card. This is what I heard when I prayed. There were 3 statements that we've crafted that effectively formulate the strategy of Tree of Life. The first question, we answer the question, what? That's our purpose. And our purpose has remained unchanged. It's to reach out to the poor and the needy in our community with the love of Jesus Christ. Why? Our principles, they're extracted from the words of Jesus himself. When he spoke of being thirsty, he spoke of being hungry, a stranger in need of clothing, sick and imprisoned. And he asked a question not unlike the question I asked you when I came in this morning. And that question rhetorically is going to be asked to you again when you meet him face to face. And the world will be gathered before his throne. And he will, and I paraphrase, but he will look you in the eye as you're knelt before his throne. And he will say, what did you do for the least of these as a follower of my son, Jesus Christ? And you and I will need to give an account for what we did for the least of these. And at that point in history, it will not be possible to look to the left or the right. He'll be asking you. And so we take these words that Jesus spoke and we effectively try and bring them to life. And that has formulated our path. So our path is wrapped around 5 distinct branches, each of those branches correlating with those words that Jesus spoke. Food, life skills, shelter, healthcare, and relief. And that has formed the framework of how we implement our purpose, how we reach out to the poor and the needy in our community with the love of Jesus Christ. So in the 12 years that's ensued, under that 5-branch framework, we now function here in Percival, in Winchester, and in Leesburg. And feeding in now to those 5 branches are 28 different ministries, every one of which, if you chose, you could plug into individually, with your spouse, with your family. But there's an opportunity weekly, there's an opportunity monthly, and there's an opportunity seasonally to reach out to the poor and the needy in our community with the love of Jesus Christ. It's probably not the right forum for me to go into great detail about all of those ministries, but very briefly with food. We have a pantry. We deliver food. We don't ask people to come with their hands out. We ask that we can come to them so we can see where they live and how they live, so that we can stand on their doorstep and pray with them. We do invite people to come in this room here and in Leesburg and in Winchester, in this particular place once a week, and we provide a meal for anybody in the community that needs a meal. And the simple idea is that as we feed people, we can come alongside people and build relationships, because that's what Jesus Christ did, one by one by one. Life skills. We recognize that Tree of Life is not here just to hand out. It's here to help with a hand up. And so we believe life skills are integrally important to the well-being of individuals. So we teach people how to learn English. We teach them how to balance budgets. We teach them how to find work or to improve their work status. Shelter. We distribute clothing and furniture in a very big way a couple of times a year, both here and in Leesburg. It's a humbling sight to arrive at the clothing and the furniture giveaway at 7 a.m. in the morning and see 700 people lined up outside a building waiting to receive a free bag of clothing. We live in one of the wealthiest corners of the globe, yet the poor and the needy are around us each and every day if we'll open our eyes. Shelter also entails working hands, which means we go into homes, particularly of veterans or seniors or single mothers, and we try and renovate their home for them if they cannot afford to do it themselves. And we also have a housing ministry. And the housing ministry really began in the aftermath of the financial crisis, when we were receiving calls every day from ladies particular that faced homelessness. And I genuinely got tired of saying to these people, contact the shelter in Winchester or contact the shelter in Leesburg. So we took a huge leap of faith and we rented 5 apartments here in town, and we have done for over a decade. And we provide a place of comfort, a respite, a home for ladies and their children in those 5 apartments. And our dream is to think bigger for housing because it's an intensely acute problem. And our dream is to try and provide homes for senior citizens and for disabled adults who face the same challenges as single moms looking for housing in this area. Our 4th branch is healthcare, and we distribute vouchers in collaboration with professional dentists and doctors and eye providers, and we provide wellness classes to help those less fortunate in their wellness challenges. And our final branch is relief. We distribute relief by way of financial relief. Jesus speaks in Matthew's gospel of being imprisoned, and somebody came to visit me. And I remember when I was reading those words, the concept of relief came to mind. I drove around this area and I looked at all these amazing homes, and I felt convinced that behind those doors people felt trapped and imprisoned. So we try and provide that relief. It might be financially, but we also extend help to families who have children with special needs. And so we invite their children here. We provide a fun respite program for them, and the parents can take a little bit of relief and go and do other things and shop and play with kids. We also provide relief for seniors that may be lonely and don't speak to anybody as one week unfolds into another week. And we provide relief seasonally through programs such as Christmas for Others, where we distribute clothes and toys and food. Up to, in this past Christmas season, for up to 500 people across our 3 locations. So in amongst those 28 ministries, and I've only touched on a few, there's a space for you. And if you want more information, if you'd like to plug in, we host what we describe as a volunteer introduction program once a month. The next one happens to be tonight, actually. We alternate between Percival and Leesburg. Tonight is in Leesburg. We meet at the junction with we gather at the junction for the program. If you're not familiar where that is, I can tell you, but we meet just for an hour between 7 and 8 o'clock. And then alternately here on a Saturday morning, we meet here in Percival once a month to orient people into the story of Tree of Life. So if you'd like to get engaged, we'd be delighted to see you, your family, at any one of those meetings. And collectively, we can work together in this community to do one thing, and that's to share the love of Jesus Christ, and in doing so, to honor